Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters community, is brought to you by Handy Quilter, designed by a quilter for quilters. Robert Kaufman Fabrics, quality fabrics for quilting. Sulky, express yourself with Sulky and create with confidence. And The Warm Company, inspiring products for creative people.
Hi, I'm Lori Baker. I'm creative editor for Quilters Newsletter magazine. Today with me we have Joan Musick, quilter, author, fiber artist, and I'm delighted that you're here today.
Thank you.
Would you like to start by telling me what inspired you to do your quilts with matching books?
Well, it's based on a true story. I had a neighbor who called me one day and she said, "The strangest thing is happening to my flowers. Every time I go out the door, more of the flower tops are missing. And the roots aren't pulled up and there's no footprints. And I think maybe somebody is playing a mean trick on me." And I thought about it for a minute and I thought, Sharon, you have a bunny. And it was just so funny that this whole conversation that we had. And I went home and I wrote it down because I thought I just have to write this story down. That's what I do when I need to get information out of my head. And then being a quilter, I thought, well, I really need to try and see if I can interpret any of this in fabric. And so one thing led to another. And now I have this quilt behind me and I have a children's book also.
So that's the missing flower tops part.
Yes.
Where did the second half come from?
Well, when I was a child, I had a book. It was a two-sided storybook. So on the one side was How to Love a Girl, on the other side was How to Love a Kitten. And the two-sided thing inspired me to where I thought, well, I need to do this story from two perspectives. So the missing flower tops is the lady whose flowers go missing, and the midnight snack is the bunny who goes for a snack and almost becomes one.
What a lovely idea. Okay, now tell me, as we're looking at your quilt, how did you decide what to put where?
Well, I started with the center panel first. The fabric that makes up most of the sky starts with gold near the middle of it and goes up to blue at the top. That was one piece of fabric that said country and summer to me. And so I thought, well, I'll start there and do a country scene with a farm and a barn and all this. And then the neighbor that I had a couple of horses and a dog. And so I thought, well, I'll just interpret those with the fabrics that I have. And just as I was working on each block, I would think ahead to the next one and what fabrics I had that would match that. And one thing they just kept coming along until I finally had the thing put together. So.
Okay, I really like this one. I love the bunny's perspective. That's just a fun idea. So we have the flip book.
Yes.
And then you have a second book.
I do. The second one is The Tortoise and the Hare Revisited. In this story, and it just seemed an easy one to interpret into a two-sided book. So in this one, it's Turtle's 110th birthday, which is young for a turtle. And the animals want to have a surprise party for him, so they tell him to go to the meadow where they're going to have a party. So he starts out on his journey, but Bunny knows he has all day to get there. And so each of them have a journey to the party, which are the same path, but different experiences. And so it's how their story goes.
Okay, and you were talking a little earlier about how you get your images, particularly the dancing bunny.
Oh, well, Google is my friend. I frequently go looking for images on Google, and I use only photographs to take my images from because I don't want to encroach on anyone else's copyright of something they've drawn or something like that. So I look for an actual image. I have one here. For instance, I knew I needed a lady looking at the flower tops from behind a bush. So I went and found this lady, Audrey Hepburn, and then made my own pattern from that. So that's kind of one way that I do it.
Okay.
And for the bunny that was on the turtle quilt, I went and looked up Charlie Brown and Snoopy to see how Snoopy was dancing, and then kind of patterned my quilt, my dancing bunny after Snoopy.
Okay, that's wonderful. Any of the other art and have fun stories with it?
Well, I'm so inspired by the fabric. There's such great fabric out these days.
Oh, yes.
I'm so thankful to all of our fabric designers, because I really choose fabrics that have beautiful designs on them, work that is nicely done. You know, there's a place for cartoon work, but what I choose is things that are more real to life.
Yes.
And then use that as my own interpretation.
So are you from a quilting family?
No, I started out, I was about 12. I have a sister who's 10 years older than I, and she was sewing her own clothing. So I learned to sew my own clothing, made my own wedding dress, made my first quilt in 1980. And then probably 1983 was when Eleanor Burns was just starting her Quilt in a Day.
Yes.
So, and that was before rotary cutting. And so I did that then, and just went from there, and have tried all different kinds of techniques and patterns, and have found turned edge applique to be the one that I work the easiest in. So
okay,
that's the one I do.
And you have smaller quilts that are versions of what are behind us?
I do. My smaller quilts were as a result of people who had asked me for patterns for these quilts, and I thought, well, that's a pretty complicated quilt to try and give someone a pattern for. So I made a smaller child-size 9-block quilt for each one, so that a quilter could make one to go with the book for their child. And each quilt has the main elements of each book.
Okay.
So
okay. And you do have those
I do have the patterns, yes. One for each quilt. So there's one for the missing flower tops, and one for the turtle and the happy nappy day.
Those are wonderful.
Thank you.
They really are wonderful.
And so, again, the book, when I show it to people, I show them this is a two-sided book. So I show it this way, and then I flip it over this way. So it is 2 stories in one book.
And they're wonderful books. The art in them is just wonderful.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about the publishing story.
Well, I had finished the first quilt, and I knew I was looking for a publisher, and ran into a friend who knew somebody who was being published, and so I contacted the publisher, who was right in my own city. And so it's Mother's House Publishing in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And they do all my work, and they help me with every step of the process.
That's great.
So.
That really helps, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
It really helps a lot. I really enjoy your quilts. Do you have another one in the works?
I do have a third one. It's The Boy and the Dog. It's Marvin's Marvelous Imagination and Ruffy's Remarkable Reality.
So from the little boy's perspective and from the dog's perspective.
Yes, yes.
Oh, how fun. I'll look forward to seeing that.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to tell us today?
Well, I do have my own website. It's www.joanmusick.com, and you can go and see more of these images, or order a book if you want to buy one, or a pattern, or and just keep track of the events that I have going on. So.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We've been with Joan Musick. We've been talking about her quilts that go with her children's books, and we've just had a wonderful time. Thank you so much, Joan.
Thanks for having me.
Quilters Newsletter TV, the Quilters Community, is brought to you by Handy Quilter, designed by a quilter for quilters. Robert Kaufman Fabrics, quality fabrics for quilting. Sulky, express yourself with Sulky and create with confidence. And The Warm Company, inspiring products for creative people.